Hello there and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Michelle Ferré and I'm a 4th grade teacher in Maryland. Over the past several months, teachers pretty much everywhere have been forced to teach from their homes online. It's been called distance learning, e-learning, online teaching, all of these different things. And obviously this was a situation that many of us were not prepared for. We just had to jump into it and give it our best. But one of the best things about being a teacher is the fact that you constantly get to reflect and improve your practice. So for today's video, I'm going to be sharing the 10 best decisions that I made during distance teaching. Now, I actually am still online teaching as we speak. I still have a few weeks left. However, I have learned so much over the past months. Obviously, going into the fall, I have no idea what the school structure might look like, but I can definitely use those lessons that I've learned over the past few months to help me regardless of what we end up doing. So I wanted to share these decisions that I made that I truly loved and really helped me with you all so that depending on what that looks like in the fall, hopefully you can start to implement some of these ideas. The first best decision that I made was connecting with my students in multiple ways. Obviously, we know one of the biggest obstacles with online teaching or distance learning or e-learning, whatever you want to call it, is the fact that there is not equity with students being able to access the online materials. Some students don't have devices, or they don't have devices all the time. They don't have internet access. They don't have a parent at home or a guardian at home that's able to support them. There's all of these obstacles in the way. So one decision I made is that I'm not going to connect with my students in just one way, because that's never going to work for all of my students. I knew I had to find different ways to be able to connect with them and let them know that I'm still here, I still love them, I still care about them, and I'm still here to support them in any way I can. Obviously, a lot of the ways I connected with my students was online, and this is because my district actually provided students with devices. They had multiple ways to get internet access, so I knew my students had at least some way to be able to get online. But the amount of time that they could spend online definitely varied. So some of the things that I did Google Meets, and I tried to change up the day and time of the Google Meet throughout the past few months, so that way if a student couldn't attend at a specific time or on a specific day, hopefully they could catch one of the future ones. I also recorded audio chapters for my students. That way they could just hear my voice as we read or continue reading a book that we had started in class. And that was a good way to keep that relationship going, but they could listen to it at any time. They didn't have to log on at a specific time to listen to it. I also had virtual lunch bunches with my students, and I always let them pick the day and time, so that way I knew it was a time or a day that worked for them. I also mailed them letters because I knew not all of my students can get online all of the time, so I was able to mail them letters just to connect with them and let them know how I was doing. And one of the best things was receiving letters back from my students. I did include my personal address on the letters. That's just a choice that I made, and I'm really happy I made that choice because I did get letters back from several of them, and it just helped rejuvenate this old way that people used to connect, like actual pen and paper. And I think a lot of my students appreciated that. And again, they didn't have to be online to be able to talk to me. They could just mail me a letter. The second best decision I made was collaborating with my team. When all of this started happening back in March, as a team, we decided, look, we're all gonna be overwhelmed, we're all gonna have a lot of work, and we're all gonna be figuring things out as we go. So our biggest resource right now is the fact that we have each other, and we need to be able to utilize that. So we actually decided to come up with a system in terms of posting and scheduling on Google Classroom. Obviously, we were all meeting with our students and having small groups and having these individual help sessions. But in terms of scheduling the actual content for our students, we decided to break it up by day. We have 5 4th grade teachers, and there's typically 5 days in a week. Now, instead of us each taking a day, like I do Monday and someone else does Tuesday, we actually created just a rotation. So we went in alphabetical order. So I was always the second person to post. Sometimes that was Tuesday. If we were off on Monday, sometimes that was on a Wednesday. It just depended. But That meant I didn't have to spend time trying to schedule all of the other lessons. When it was my day, I would schedule it not only on my Google Classroom, but also on all of my team teachers' Google Classrooms. We all added each other as teachers, so we had the power to go on and schedule posts, and it took a lot of that pressure and that overwhelm off, so I could spend more time focusing on my students and making sure that they got what they needed, instead of spending my time posting the lessons every single day, if that makes sense. Obviously, one of the hardest parts about collaboration is the fact that people all approach things differently. So we had to really sit down as a team and go, okay, when we schedule posts, what does it look like? That means that we are setting up the slides, we are getting everything linked, we are writing the description and the direction for students, and that way we were all on the same page and we were all doing the same thing. The third best decision I made was keeping my Google Drive and my Google Classroom organized. Now listen, you all know I'm a pretty organized person. I was already organized before this started, but as we started pushing out all of these lessons online, I started having a lot more documents and things floating around in my Google Drive, and I was like, oh, okay, I gotta do something about this. So I actually created an e-learning folder. Within that e-learning folder, I created a folder for each different subject area. So I had literacy, math, science, and social studies, and within each of those folders, I would create a folder for each lesson, and I would put all of the slides and the Google Docs and everything that I needed in that folder. And for me, that just helped keep my organizational heart very happy. It also helped for when I needed to go find a document. There were certain times, especially at the beginning, where we were trying to get the sharing settings correct so that our students could view things and edit or not edit things when we wanted them to. And as a result, we definitely messed up at the beginning a few times. So I had to be able to go back to prior lessons I had posted and make changes, and having it organized into folders made it super easy for me to find the documents I needed. Now, Google Classroom was a whole different ballgame because I've been using Google Classroom for years, but I've never had to post this many assignments. And as a result, at the beginning, I didn't really know what I wanted to do to keep it organized. It definitely was a work in progress, and the longer things went on, the more I realized, oh, I need to do this because that's going to help for this reason. And I actually created a whole video about how I organize my Google Classroom, so I will link that for you down in the description box. Highly recommend it, especially if your district or state is going to continue online learning in the fall. You definitely want to start with that organized system because it's going to make your life much easier. The fourth best decision that I made was using the reuse post feature on Google Classroom. Now, this is specific to Google Classroom, but I'm sure other services like Schoology have something very similar. But the reuse post feature is a game changer. Every time you make an assignment, you don't want to recreate the wheel and start from scratch. The reuse post feature is almost like make a copy on Google Drive. You know what I'm talking about, where it just takes exactly what you had before and copies it? That's what the reuse post feature does. It is fantastic because it will already have the directions that you had typed for the previous assignment, the attachments that you had, the rubric that you had, and you can use that as your foundation to be able to build your new assignment on. So for example, if I'm creating a new math assignment, I'm going to reuse a previous math assignment, and the directions are already written out. All I have to do is go in and change the lesson number. Maybe if there's something slightly different with that lesson, I have to add that in there, but then I'm ready to go. I just change the date that I'm going to post it and the date that it's due, and that's it. I mentioned that my team teachers and I were working together to be able to schedule lessons. So when I would finish scheduling it on my Google Classroom, I would go into each of my team teachers, I would go to their classwork tab, I would click reuse post, and I would reuse the exact same post that I had. Now, it does not carry over the due date, so I would have to enter in the due date, I would schedule it, and that was it. It would literally take like 30 seconds maximum to schedule it on each teacher's Google Classroom. The fifth best decision I made was using Google Slides to organize each lesson. At the very beginning, with all of this distance learning, the very first week, my team teachers and I would just make an assignment for each lesson. And in that assignment, we had a list of all the different things our kids had to do. So it would say, click on this and watch the video, and then click on this and complete the practice, and then click on this. And we quickly realized that a lot of students weren't reading directions, but also it was just too overwhelming. There were too many things to click on, and if it had a really long title, sometimes the kids couldn't see the whole title, and it was just too much. So we shifted gears and we said, you know what, there has to be a better way. And I thought back to when I was in the classroom, I would create a slideshow for every lesson that I taught. It just helped keep things organized and it helped my lesson be able to flow better. So we ended up adapting that for online teaching. We would create a slideshow for each lesson. So for example, a math lesson, they would open up just one slideshow, one Google Slides. Instead of having 10 different links, it was one Google Slides. Within that Google Slides, we would have the objective, we would have their number sense routine, we would have their tutorial video, we would have their practice problems, we would have their graded slides. Like, it was all in one place, and it just made things go so much smoother. Now, in one of my day in the life vlogs that I did during this time, I actually showed exactly how I created these slides, so I will link that for you down in the description box as well. The sixth best decision I made was using the comment bank on Google Classroom. You all know that I'm a huge fan of templates because they save so much time. They give you that basic structure and then you can build off of that. So one of the things I quickly realized is that giving students feedback, whether it's through actual comments on Google Slides or Google Docs, or through the private comments on Google Classroom, it can take a lot of time to grade just one student's assignment. But by saving comments that I was frequently using in my comment bank, it made things so much easier. For example, in reading, my students always had to write a summary of what they read. And I would typically, if they wrote a good summary, I would say, this was a great summary because you use details from the beginning, middle, and end of the text. So I saved that comment in my comment bank. So then on the Google Doc, when I would leave a comment, I would just start typing summary and it would literally pop up, I'd click it, insert it, and I was done. I also would leave my students private comments, typically telling them, hey, great job, make sure you check the comments I left on your document. I tended to leave more personalized comments on the actual document, and then I had a very generic comment for their private comment. So I had a private comment for math saying, great job on these math slides, make sure you check the Google Slides for comments. I had one for reading saying, great job answering these questions, make sure you check the Google Doc for your private comments. And I had that for pretty much every subject, so that way when I was going through and grading math assignments, I would just copy it and paste it onto every single student's assignment, and it made things so much faster. Again, I did go over this in more detail in one of my vlogs, so I'm going to link that down below, but keep in mind, if you are using a different service and it doesn't have a comment bank feature, you can actually save these comments in a Google Doc or in a Word document or the Notes app. Any place where you can just store text, you can put it right on there, even Google Keep. I love Google Keep for this. And then as you're grading, you just copy and paste it over. The seventh best decision I made was using the to-do list to keep track of student assignments. Now again, this is a Google Classroom feature. I'm not sure if other services have it, but on Google Classroom, this is a game changer. Obviously, at the beginning of distance learning, when I only had a week or two of assignments, it was pretty easy to go to the classwork tab, click on the assignment, and see if any students turned it in. So there were about 10 assignments a week, so I would just click through each one. If there were any turned in, I would grade it, and if not, I'd just keep going to the next one. However, when we got into week 4 and week 5 and week 9, it started to get very overwhelming to try to go back and check every single assignment. And that's when I discovered the to-do list. Now on Google Classroom, if you click on the 3 horizontal bars that are in the top left corner, you will have a list of all of your Google Classrooms. Above that, you will see calendar and to-do list. If you click on to-do list, it's going to bring you to a page that lists all of your assignments in one place. If you are a teacher for multiple classes, you're going to see multiple classes on there. But there's a drop down, you just click it and you can choose just one class at a time. So for example, when I go to my to-do list, I don't need to look at all my team teachers' Google Classrooms because we're each grading our own Google Classrooms. So I would click the drop down, select my Google Classroom, and I would have a list of all of the assignments. Now this is great because if there were any old assignments, like things when we were in school that I don't need to look at, I could actually move them over to the review tab and it would move it off of my main page. Then I would basically have a list and I would look at the turned in column, which was all the way to the left, and my goal was to always keep that at 0. So when I would wake up in the morning, one of the first things I would do is go to my to-do list. I would look at my assignments, scroll down, and anywhere there wasn't a 0 under to do, I would click on that assignment, grade it, get it sent back to the student. And this really helped me be able to stay on top of my grading. Again, I go into more detail in a vlog, so I'm going to link that down below. The 8th best decision that I made was using the split screen feature on my computer. So the split screen feature is basically a way for me to be able to have multiple windows open and be able to see them both. Basically, one is on the right side of the screen and one is on the left side of the screen. Now, on a Mac, and I'm gonna start with Mac because that's what I am most fluent in, there are the 3 colored dots up in the top left corner. There is a red one, a yellow one, and a green one. If you hover over the green dot, you will get 3 options. You will get enter into full screen mode, or move the window to the left side, or move the window to the right side. So what I would do is I would actually have open 2 different windows. Let's say one window was Google Meet, and the other window had my Google Classroom and my email. I would use that green button. I would move one to the left side, one to the right side, and that way, while I was on Google Meet, available, so if students had any questions, I could also be answering emails or grading. Because during my office hours, I wasn't always meeting with a student every single minute of that time. There was a lot of time where I was on, so that way if a student had a question, they could come on and ask me, but I don't need to just sit there staring at a blank screen. I could be doing other things, and this split screen function was perfect for that. Now, if you don't have a Mac, I don't know if Windows has like a one-click thing like Mac does, but you can always just open up 2 different windows and then resize them. Resize the first window so it only takes up half your screen, and then do the same for the second window. The best part about split screen is you don't have to keep it 50-50. You don't have to keep them the same size. You can actually click and drag that middle bar to be able to make one screen larger than the other. So typically, if I was on Google Meet and no students were on, I would make that window pretty skinny. All I needed it for was to see if a student got on, and I would make my other window that I was actually working on a lot bigger. The 9th best decision that I made was using the Chrome browser. For the longest time on my Mac, I was just using Safari because that's what comes standard on a Mac, and I didn't really feel any need to use a different browser. But let me just tell you that using the Chrome browser is a game changer, especially if you have a Google account. I don't know about you, but I have multiple Google accounts that I'm signed into on my computer. I have my work account, I have my business account, I have my personal account, like it's all of these different accounts. And the issue is when you're trying to jump from thing to thing, for example, Gmail, or you're trying to jump to Google Drive, it constantly wants you to switch back and forth between accounts, and that becomes very frustrating. But with Google Chrome, you can actually log in multiple accounts directly to the browser. So I'm actually logged in for all 3 of my accounts on my Google browser. What this means is if I'm working on school stuff and it's during the day, I'm going to make sure that I'm logged into my school account. But let's say it's the end of the day and I want to work on business things. I can actually click on it, switch over to my other account. It will open up a whole new window. That way, when I try to go to Google Drive, it's going to have me already logged into my business Google Drive because I switched my account on the browser. This also is super helpful if you have multiple students at home and they each have different school accounts. Log them into the Chrome browser, and then when it's one student's turn, make sure they are selected. When it's the other student's turn, just click, switch over, it'll open up a new window, and then you don't have to worry about it constantly asking you to switch when you're going to things like Google Drive or Gmail. Another reason I love Google Chrome is the bookmark feature, which basically every internet browser has this. However, what I've started doing that has really helped me, because I have a lot of things I want to bookmark, is I no longer put any text with it. So when I bookmark something on my bookmark bar, it actually just has the symbol. Now, in order to do this, when you're bookmarking something, you literally just delete the text that it has as the name, and then it's going to save just that symbol to your bookmark bar. The reason this is helpful is because you can fit so many more bookmarks on your bookmark bar. If you have long titles, it's going to take up a lot of space on your bookmark bar. But if you are only using this symbol, it's going to take up a lot less space, and then you can fit a lot more on there. Now, obviously this means you have to remember what the symbols are. But if you're anything like me, when you use them frequently, you get to know not only the symbol, but you also know about where on your bookmark bar it is, like is it at the beginning or the middle or the end? You start to just memorize that. So give it a try if you haven't already done that, and you might end up liking it like I do. The last best decision I made was using a checklist for my weekly tasks. I don't know about you, but I have a ton of tasks that reoccur every week. I have to schedule my assignments on Google Classroom. I have to track student engagement. I have to grade their assignments. I have to enter them in the gradebook. I have to set up my collaborative planning notes for my team. Like, I have all of these things that I have to do. And even though when we get into a routine, we tend to just do those things without even thinking about it, I know personally when I am stressed and I am overwhelmed and I am in a situation that is not my normal, which being in quarantine is not my normal, I tend to forget a lot more things. So for me, actually creating a checklist of all of those weekly tasks helped to make sure that I did not forget anything. Now, I've talked before about Google Tasks, which is like an online to-do list through Google, and I love it, but it's not my favorite thing for reoccurring to-do lists. I like to use that more for my tasks where it's one and done. Instead, I really like to use Google Keep for recurring checklists, because on Google Keep, once you create your checklist and let's say you go through the week and you check them all off, there is actually a button where it'll uncheck them all at one time, and I really, really love that feature. I did show this more in depth in one of my past vlogs, so once again, I'm going to link that below. All right, so those are my 10 best decisions that I made while online teaching. These are things that I started doing that really helped me because they either help me feel less stressed or help me be more productive or just help create that sense of normalcy for myself here at home. I really hope this list was helpful for you. If it was, please give the video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you do not miss any future videos. I would love to know what you think the best decision you personally made during this time was. Please leave a comment down below to let me know. As always, thank you for watching. I love you all so much. Don't forget to put your positive pants on, and I'll catch you in the next one.